There we go. We should see people coming. So yeah, we're gonna wait about like a minute or two just to get a chance of people just coming through the door. Yeah, how are you? You're good, Rin?
Very good. Yes, it's sunny. It's Friday. I'm going away this weekend. It doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get better than that. Like the prospect of saying like that prospect of I'm gonna leave at like 4 o'clock today and then I'm gonna dash off. Like, are you leaving tonight or are you leaving tomorrow morning? Like
Tonight, yeah, we'll pick the kids up from school, 3 o'clock, head off straight away. And they don't know we're going away. So they know there's something's happening after school, but they don't know. So
yeah.
I've bribe them with a chocolate Easter egg because I can't say goodbye to them as they're leaving now for school. I was like, it's fine, I'm picking you up from school, I'll have chocolate. And then that's it, solves all the problems.
that's problems all the chocolate. Yeah, that's the same in our house. Cool. Morning everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us for one of our coffee time, breakfast time, smart cookies. As you know, the smart cookies is the space where we try to invite experts and basically shares anything that has nothing to do with what cookies does, which is normally software development. And we thought that this part is like the boring side, and actually we want to learn from the fun side. So we're lucky to have those amazing people like Rin today that are coming and enlighten us with their talks. Like every smart cookies, the talks are going to be recorded and they're going to be available on YouTube afterwards. If you want to get reminded, I think at the end or during the session, Emily is going to share a link where you can subscribe to the newsletter so you get reminded for every talk and every time we post something. If you could all move your chat to panelists and attendees so we can all see your questions, feel free to drop questions during Rin talk, and we're just gonna have a Q&A session at the end. If you wanna say good morning in a chat and maybe tell us where you're from, I'm gonna like shamelessly steal that from Joe 2 weeks ago, and I thought it was fantastic to just see the message dropping of like, where are people? It's quite amazing. Yeah, we are international. We are international. Hello from Vietnam. That's pretty cool. Yeah, last time we had Vietnam, China. There was some really amazing places in the UK as well, amazing places in Europe. So that was pretty nice. Good morning, everybody. Personally, I'm in Portishead, so not too far away, not too remote, not too exotic, but there is something that people call the sea here. It's more like a mud bank, I would have to say, but this is not really the sea. Cool. Look, Rin, I'm gonna give you the screen. I will try to not interject, but I have a tendency sometimes, hey, how about whatever, but I'll try not to interject, and I will just give you the screen, and it's gonna be up to you.
Awesome, great. Okay, in which case I am going to start sharing and hopefully start presenting.
There you go.
Is it working?
Wonder the magic of technology. Look at that.
Amazing. I'm very excited. I never get nervous about giving presentations. I do get nervous about the technology all the time because it lets me down. So, or rather I let it down because clearly the technology works fine. It's just that I can't operate it. So cool. So it was when you said about kind of getting experts kind of onto the Smart Cookies series, because that's what I'm talking about today, is how to be seen as an expert. And so many, we're really living in a knowledge economy. Expertise is what sells. And a lot of us, I'm sure most people watching this are experts, but it's how do you prove that to people? So that's what I want to talk about. And I want to talk about the kind of content that's going to build your brand reputation and help people to understand that you are an expert, the expert that you know you are. So an intro, this is me when I had a decent haircut, because I haven't had a haircut for such a long time, it's ridiculous. So if I had to introduce myself, I could say to you that I am a top quality experienced writer. I could tell you that I'm an expert, but that's not especially helpful because anyone can say they're an expert, right? And why should you believe me? Of course, I'm going to say that I'm good because that's what I want to do, right? So, I mean, I could also give you a list of sort of CV type items. So the prizes I've won for my writing, I've got my magazine journalism qualification, freelance journalism, down the Guardian, psychology. So I can tell you all of that stuff. And again, that's helpful. It's really important to have those sorts of facts and things like on your website and so on, or on your LinkedIn profile. But essentially, that only goes a certain distance when it comes to establishing that expertise. So I really like this quote, Russian playwright and short story writer Anton Chekhov. He said, "Don't tell me the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on broken glass." And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of show people rather than tell people that we're experts. So content marketing is obviously something that's like really grown in the last sort of 10 years or so. And this is a good definition, albeit a bit of a long one. So content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. There's loads of different elements in there. I could do my whole talk on why that's a really good definition, but actually what I want to talk about in a sense is the fact that it's not the perfect definition for what I'm trying to talk about, because content marketing can be anything really. It's any content. It doesn't necessarily set you up as an expert. I love a meme, absolutely love a meme, especially a one does not simply meme, because that makes me really, really happy. But you know, if I'm sharing memes, so say I create memes with my own branding, like that's great. It might make my audience laugh, but is it going to establish me as an expert? Unless I'm a comedian, or I don't know, maybe a graphic designer, so you've got lovely visuals, it's not necessarily going to help with that expertise and reputation. So I prefer to talk about expert-led content because that's a very different type of content. And that, I'll use my own definition here. Sorry, it's a little bit arrogant, isn't it? But anything that you can create or share that helps, sorry, I've got the screen in front of it, helps shift people's perception of you and your business towards that expert status. And I deliberately use the word or there, so it's anything you can create or share, because it doesn't all have to be stuff that you've created. It can also be stuff that you've shared, but expert-led content is what we're talking about today. And it's not just one type of thing. As I mentioned on the title slide, we've got 7 different types of content that I want to talk about today. So I didn't want to just kind of do a list of the 7 types of content, because that's really boring. So I want to kind of more think about it as to what the purposes of these types of content are. So the first thing that we want to get people to do, and this is the really, to me, the most important one, is to let them experience your expertise. So the picture there is of, you know, ice cream samples. You imagine you go to like a farmer's market or something, and you know, you've got the cheese, and it's like the best cheese in the world. And you're like, great, well, you would say it's the best cheese in the world, but they've also got samples, and you go and you taste it, and you're like, oh, this is the best cheese in the world, I will buy some. It's a sort of simplistic way of looking at it, but actually that is what you can do with content, that you can kind of allow people to have a little bit of a taste of what you do and how you can help them. And from there, they're more kind of convinced to therefore take the next step in the journey, whatever that is. And, you know, depending on your type of business, it might be very quick. It might be like a farmer's market. You taste the cheese, you buy the cheese. Other times it's more of a journey, and you're sort of going, okay, well, I'll sign up to a newsletter, or I'll, whatever it is, I'll connect on LinkedIn. So in order for people to experience your expertise, you need to create original content. And there's a whole bunch of different things here. So, you know, blog posts, videos, infographics, checklists. It's all kind of, it's all content that you create, and then you can use forever. You can repurpose it. You can post it on your website. And the reason why it's got ongoing in the brackets there is because this is stuff that, as I said, it's yours, and it sort of lasts forever. I mean, you want to update it and so on, but it's essentially lasts forever. But there's also a secondary type, which is this transitory content, and we've got loads more channels that we can share this kind of expert content. So things like Facebook Live, Instagram TV, Snapchat, social post stories, excuse me, they're all ways of sharing your expertise. So you might think of Snapchat as kind of a silly platform, or you might think, oh, well, Facebook Live is just, you know, it's just a sort of a fluff piece. But actually you can get on there and you can share your expertise, and you can give people top tips, or, you know, solve their problem or answer questions. And yes, they disappear, but it's really about understanding your audience, where they are, what they're interested in. And sometimes, you know, it's been interesting sometimes to play around with Instagram. Like, our audience is not particularly active on Instagram, so it's kind of a sort of secondary channel for us. But where we post just live pictures, or like, you know, the pictures on our actual feed, that gets some engagement. When we post stories, we get much higher views on it. So with any of these things, it is very much about experimenting and kind of looking at the results you're trying to get, and seeing, you know, what gets good engagement. But essentially, this for me is the absolute pinnacle. I say this, and when I say this, I mean, I'm going to go back to this kind of content, one of the interesting things I always think about is where you host it. So obviously with transitory content, you create it, it disappears. So that, it's valuable to a point, but it doesn't build that kind of bank of expertise. Whereas this stuff, it does. And I would say, generally speaking, try and host as much of it as you can on your own site. The reason being that obviously when you put stuff on social, there's all, the algorithms that kind of only present what you've put on there to a certain percentage of your followers. They're trying to make money, so they want to charge you for sponsoring posts and promoting posts. And also they could disappear. I mean, you can't imagine it, can you? But what if Facebook just, I don't know, went bankrupt or just fully disappeared, and like everything you had was on Facebook or LinkedIn? There's a lot of people post articles on LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but think about what happened if LinkedIn disappeared tomorrow and all the articles you'd written just disappeared with it. That'd be really depressing. Plus also it doesn't actually, it can link through to your website obviously, and it can generate visitors to your site, but in terms of SEO, having stuff on your site and getting people onto your site, that's really what the goal is. Is this all making sense so far? I feel like I'm talking a lot. I appreciate that's the point of a webinar, but also, yeah, I'm talking, so interrupt me. So you want people to be able to experience your expertise. That is absolutely key. If they see it for themselves and they trust what you're saying, brilliant. That is the biggest hurdle. But there's other ways you can do it. So getting other people to confirm what you're saying or what they're thinking is really powerful too. So getting other people to tell the world that you're an expert is powerful. So there's a couple of ways to do that. So testimonials and case studies are really, really important, especially in kind of service-based businesses. That's really important. And especially the more you get into kind of like intangible stuff. If you've got a lovely product, if you're an artist and you sell paintings, you can just put the painting on the website. It's like, look, it's pretty, and everyone goes, yes, it's pretty, and that's great. But if you do something that's a bit more intangible, or app development, it may not just be the final app that is what the selling point is. The selling point might be the discovery process that you go on to help people refine their ideas. And you need to really explain that sort of stuff for people to understand what value you're really offering and why you're an expert. So the difference between testimonials and case studies, obviously a testimonial is kind of a short, snappy kind of quote from your client or your customer. Whereas a case study goes into a little bit more detail. It's a bit more of a story. So it sets out that whole context, and it's really, really powerful. What I would say is with case studies, if you're just writing a case study like in-house from your own perspective, that's great because you can share what you want to share, but it's kind of saying what you want to say. And I think having quotes from your client or customer is really, really important in there, because it's all very well saying we help them do this and we help them do that, but actually what's more powerful is them turning around and say, yeah, this is what was particularly useful. So in that case study, you're there with actual experience. A client of ours, it's very complex technology product, and so we've been vlogging and doing white papers for them for a while. And the marketing manager back, lovely guy, he was concerned that would we be able to kind of really understand what it is they do and really understand the benefits to the client. And so one of the quotes in there is how impressed he was about our listening skills, that we were able to kind of go and really listen, really understand and communicate that message. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, is that ability to listen and translate an expert's point of view and make it engaging and tangible for the audience. So it was great to get him saying that about us rather than us saying it about it. So another way for other people to talk about, to show that you're an expert is a PR win. So that can be lots of different things. So there's me an award ceremony in London. We won a small award back in the day where we could actually go to awards ceremonies. It was really fun. We won another small award last year. It was online, so I didn't like that picture. I like my picture of my dress. In the middle there, that's an article I wrote for the Bristol Post, and then on the right there is a talk that I was giving. Obviously, this talk. So even something like this, being asked to do this talk for me is lovely, because it's like, oh, I'm being recognised as having expertise. And so obviously there's that sense of, when you're getting other people saying, Rin's an expert, you guys are experts, it's really, really powerful, and it sends a real message. So that kind of content, if any of that stuff happens, if you do a talk, if you win an award, if you can get some PR, put it out there in social. That's the kind of content you want to be showcasing to help people understand your expertise. So I just had to check the time because I have no idea what time it is. So those are the two most important things I would say. One, let people experience for themselves what your expertise is. That is really, really fundamental. Secondary, get other people to say that you're an expert. Share content that showcases that other people believe that about you. But then you also want to back that up with a few other bits. So showing your expertise is up to date is important. And I think where this is also helpful, the content from now on, is that it's not quite as direct. So you want to have a mix of content that you're putting out there. You don't just want to be like, look at me, I'm winning awards, and I'm, that's all really great. But you also kind of want to be adding value and being helpful. So I think this can be very useful. Through so news and views. So if you read an interesting article, in industry press, or something's trending, put it out there, share the interesting article. It's helpful for other people. It's showcasing other people's stuff as well. It shows that you're up to date, that you're reading the right things, that you're kind of looking into the right things, and you're up to date with everything. And the views element, I think, is actually really, really important, because if you just say, look, I read an article, cool. If you say, look, I read an article, I've got this opinion about it, again, it's just adding the weight of your expertise to that. So in this case, I was agreeing with what was being said in the article, and I thought it was great, and I pulled out a quote that I thought was useful. Sometimes, and it's more controversial to disagree with something, but that can actually be really powerful and can really start a debate. So if you don't mind being a bit controversial, and if there's something happening in your industry that you can disagree with, that's really, really powerful as well, because it just shows that you are knowledgeable and you've got an opinion and you're able to share that. And behind the scenes as well, again, it's about being up to date. So on the right there is, again, when we were allowed to go out and see people. I was at the B2B Marketing Ignite conference in London. Really, really awesome. Obviously, the first reason you go to a conference is to learn and to meet people. So it's not just so that you can show off and say, look, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But think of it like, don't let those opportunities pass in terms of content. Remember that it's important to help just back up that story of, where you've been and what you're doing and why you're an expert. And on the left, it was a client of ours did this a massive kind of 20th anniversary kind of online conference, basically. It was absolutely fantastic. And again, the most important thing was taking part, enjoying it, learning. But it's also important to share it, to get it out there, and to remind people of who you are and what you're doing. So that you're not just saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You're showing, look, I've been doing these sorts of things. And then knowing and engaging with other experts as well. I think that's so important. It sounds kind of shallow to talk about like how, the people that you hang out with like influence people's perceptions of you, but they do, and it is important. And I think, as I said, it's secondary. The most important thing about hanging out with other experts is learning and connecting and all the rest of it. But actually, that will have an impact on how people perceive you as an expert. So, for example, I know Michelle Ovens, who runs the Small Business Britain and does the Small Awards. And so when she shares something on LinkedIn, I try and share her stuff as well. It's the main reason I do it is to promote her stuff, because I think she's amazing and I love the work that she's doing. But naturally, that affiliation is a helpful thing to have. You can have guest posts on your own website. You can create guest posts for other experts. Just that network and that blending and that building is really, really important, I think, to do that. So just wanted to summarize. I think I'm in all right time on time, so that's not too bad. I've whizzed through so that there was plenty of time for questions. But to summarize, the main thing is to let people experience your expertise. That is going to be the biggest and most successful way that you can convince people that you are an expert. So the content that you produce that's your own is going to be the most valuable thing you can do. Get other people to tell them you're an expert. Show your expertise is up to date, and know and engage with other experts. Those 4 things are key. And this is the kind of content that you can use to do that. So your own original content, that can be ongoing stuff. That's probably the bit to put the most effort into, because it sticks around for a while. The transitory stuff can be a really good addition onto that, and depending on your audience, and you obviously know your audience and what they engage with. Make sure that you've got plenty of testimonials and case studies. Go after your clients and customers, ask them to say nice things about you, and try and invest in a few case studies because they're really, really powerful. Wherever you have any kind of PR win, make sure that you're sharing that content. Do post things that you're reading and watching and all the rest of it, and share an opinion about it. Don't hold back on your opinion, because it is really powerful, and ask people what their opinions are as well. So that's always good. You can start a debate. Make sure you're showing what you're doing behind the scenes, even though at the moment, obviously, we're not all really doing all that much. And then build your network and make sure that that's a part of your plan as well. So I'll put a post in the link in the chat in a minute. We have a guide, how to be seen as an expert, that covers a lot of this content, but it's got some like practical ideas and suggestions and pros and cons of each one. So stuff, obviously in a few minutes I can't go into everything, so the guide will hopefully help, and I'll post a link in a sec. What I will say is we've just moved over from MailChimp to Infusionsoft, so I hope that all the technology works properly when you download it, but if it doesn't, please let me know, because you guys are like the first guinea pigs of testing the new system. So yeah, and that's it.
Thank you. We will share the link as well to on the YouTube channels and on the newsletter. So yeah, don't worry. Hopefully you will get it somewhere. Cool. Thank you very much, Lynn. And yes, sorry, I cut you just right in time into the if you want to contact me, so please go for it, Rin. And then I have a few questions of my own.
Yeah, go for it. Should I stop the share and then
cool. There we go. So my first question, which is, I guess, it's a very personal one, but as I run a small business, and we are both, for lack of a better word, the face of the business, basically. And when people think about cookies, they think about me. When people think about, obviously, Rin Hamburgh, they think about you, but that's your name is.
I don't know. I think about Natalie when I think about cookies. I'm just saying.
Oh, cool. That's nice, because that's one of the work that we've been doing now, like in the past 2 years, was to, like, for a long time, it was a decision between us that Natalie is a bit more introvert. So it was a decision between us that I'm the outgoing one, I'm the talkative one, so I would be the face of it. But Natalie was actually the one running the show. That's the reality. But it just seems like it was my face everywhere. So there was a thing that we did, like in the past 2 years, was trying to bring Natalie more onto the front seat of the scene. But how do we manage, especially in a small business, this idea of like, you have to be seen as an expert, but the business has to be seen as an expert business as well, and trying to remove that kind of link between you and the business sometime, or in another term, like where do you sit between the personal branding and the business branding, basically, in that expertise showing?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, and obviously when I first started my business, it was just me, and then the team has grown. And I've always used photography as a way to kind of go, look, there's other people, because I really didn't want, and especially, I named the business with my name purely because I'd already built up some sort of that network, and I didn't want to lose that. It's a debate that people have. But yeah, I have deliberately been kind of separating the two. I try and talk about my team a lot. I try and talk about writers. I don't want people to have the expectation that they come to us and that, I'm going to be writing their blog posts, because I won't be. So I think the personal brand I've been trying to build is as an agency owner. So yes, I am an expert writer, but a lot of what I talk about in terms of expertise is as well as about growing brand reputation and running a business. So I'll share as much about running a business as I will about being a writer, because I don't really want to position myself as a writer. That is my background, and that's what my sort of business is built on. But yeah, the amount of writing I do these days, well, I write a lot for us, but less for the clients. So yeah, it's a tricky one, it's for sure, but I think what people trust now is that I've selected a team of people whose quality I believe in. So if people can trust me, then they can trust that the team I've created and built together is gonna be high quality.
Yeah, I think that's one of the that's one of the keys, like the especially, I don't know about you, but in our own process, like the first person right now that you talk to when you try to engage with cookies is going to be me, and we're going to have one or two coffee chats that are completely informal,
Yeah.
but the trust is then between the lead or the client and first of all me, and that's our next step now to grow as a company, is going to try to actually say, look, we are going to try to break this model, because ultimately I don't want the relationship to just be between me and the client. As nice as it is, it
Yeah.
starts to be now a bit too big for that to be to continue to be healthy. So it has to be like, look, you're going to work with cookies, we work in a certain model, and trying to bring the team like as early on onto the sales process, so the trust is now engaged between at the start between the team and the leads.
I think it's just about having that authenticity and having that in your mind. You know, whenever I'm on a sales call, I'll always talk through how the process works. So, you know, obviously, if it's something like messaging and website copy, I tend to lead on those ones. So, because I'm sort of most senior person in terms of the consultancy and so on, and so I would do that messaging work. I'm very open about the fact that obviously I'm not doing the writing, but if it's like strapline development, then often that is me. And then with blogging, you know, and our retainer clients, that tends to be Rosie looking after them and doing the briefings ongoing. So we're just really transparent up front that, you know, I'll be involved in the strategy call, then ongoing with the briefings, Rosie will be leading on that. And I think, you know, the more confident you get in that, the more confidence that other people have in that process working. And, you know, the more you do it as well, because, you know, there's a load of clients that Rosie looks after that, you know, I've got a top level understanding of, but she's the day-to-day person who really gets what's happening with them.
I'm going to move to other people's questions because there's quite a few that are quite nice. I think the first one was from Hui. So she said, what should you do if you try to convince people trust and your project is in some field and make cooperation with us with those fields, such as you're an entrepreneur, you need capital, and you believe in your project, and you're basically trying to people to give you money. So how do you create this trust when you're trying to raise money? Is there something specific that you need to do there, or is it just the general rules of you portray yourself as an expert?
I've never gone to raise money or anything like that. So, but I suppose, you know, brand reputation is a really interesting thing because it's a bit hard to pin down. You know, if you name like, I don't know, Dyson or McDonald's or, you know, H&M or what Primark, you know, we can all say, like, how do you perceive it? You know, is it expert? What is it known for? You know, and it's a bit arbitrary. You think, well, why do I think this about this brand? And chances are there's like a really clever strategy back in the marketing team. And it's kind of come out in lots of different ways through the kind of the advertising, the PR, and the various different bits. And I think, you know, think about the people that you know that are experts. Why do you think they're an expert? And try and think about what it is. It's quite hard sometimes to pin it down, and it probably should be in a sense. You know, I always think of, you know, Cookies HQ as experts. I'm like, I don't even know where I got in touch with you. You know, I don't know how we first met. I don't know how you came on my radar, but I've just always feel like it's like, oh yeah, great Bristol business, you know. And I think that's what you want to be doing, and that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what you want to be doing. And I think it affects everything. So I think if you're trying to raise money, then your reputation in the industry is going to be a part of that.
Yeah, and yeah, obviously, and there's these other elements of the expertise that when you're trying to raise money, the expertise that your business is bringing, like as in you're trying to raise money because you're doing innovative work, that has to be portrayed as well in your stack of content.
With anybody, whether it's a client trying to choose whether to use your product or service, or whether it's somebody trying to invest in you, there's always two questions. People want to know, can you do what I need you to do? Like, are you going to be good at it? And also, can I trust you and will I enjoy working with you? Because there's a lot of people who are incredibly talented, but are, well, I can't use the word because we're being filmed, but who are not very nice people. You're just not going to enjoy working with them, or, you know, the minute you're back home, they're not going to, you know, be focusing on your kind of work in the same way. So I think as much as anything else, you're establishing your ability and your kind of skills and kind of qualities and knowledge and so on, but you're also establishing those values. I think that can come across as well. That's just almost like a secondary thing, but it's really important. It comes hand in hand.
Cool. So do you have any tips of what kind of content works well when you have a signable? So I'm trying to, when you have a sign up post, so I'm trying to collect emails. please give me your email in order to access these PDF, like, or these video, or these things. Is there one type of content that works better than another?
Anything that adds value. So it's really about, with all content, it's just about understanding your audience and knowing what it is that they need to know. So for example, you know, I could have done a talk today about, you know, what makes a good blog post, or, you know, and that's great. But at the end of the day, I know that we work with expert-led businesses. And so the real thing that people will know is, how can I be seen as an expert? I know I'm an expert, but Joe Bloggs over there is getting way more attention than me. And I know he's not nearly as good as me. So why? I want people to know that I'm an expert. How do I do that? And so that is the value I can add. So, you know, let's imagine a scenario. Everyone here is watching, right? So people have first of all made that commitment to come and see me. Brilliant. Hopefully they've had a really good time and they've learned a bunch of stuff and they're like, that was really helpful. Hopefully after this they go, great, I'm going to go and download that lead magnet. Now I've got an email, right? So guys, don't worry, I'm not going to spam you with a whole bunch of stuff. But what we create is really, really helpful. So off the back of that, there'll be a couple of emails that will add more value, genuinely add more value to that process of how to be an expert. So you're going to get even more content that's going to be like, oh, this is so great, this is so useful. Now at the end of that, people can choose to not do anything, and that's absolutely fine. But they can then decide, you know what, actually, I really do need to get blogging, and Rin runs a blogging course, and that's starting next month. I think I'm going to sign up for that. Or they might go, do you know what, we really need a great blog, but we just don't have the resource to do that in-house. So we're going to get the team to come in and do that. And it's not about selling, it's about genuinely helping people and genuinely giving people what they need. So we've also got another guide that we're getting ready to launch, which is our blogging buyer's guide. Essentially, it's 4,500 words, 28 pages, like massive chunky thing, full of information on, like, if you need support with blogging, what should you be looking at? What are the options out there? What should you be paying? It's like, it's, if I do say so myself, really blooming useful. And again, if you add that kind of value, then people are naturally going to want to give you their details so that they get more value from you.
Cool. As every time we talk about content and we talk about like these kind of like getting your words out and getting content out, you have these questions about which platform do you choose? Like, which platform do you need to invest your time compared to the ones that are not the ones that you need to invest? I mean, I can talk on our own experience here. For us, we went through that kind of questions, and because for us we are essentially talking to B2B, it's clear for us that LinkedIn is like the most valuable platform for us to engage on. But on the other side, we also we want to recruit people, and this audience is more on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, how do you decide which platform you invest on, especially when you have new platforms like Clubhouse or TikTok and all these kind of things? How do you decide? How do you measure the engagement? And do you adapt your message to the platform, or do you just go with like a spray all kind of content the same on each platform?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, you've got different messaging for your different audiences and different platforms and everything. You know, you have a marketing team of 50, and you can do all of that. In reality, I mean, I know that my audience for example, the small business resources section of our site, where you've got things like the Level Up Your Business blog course, and you've got the blog title toolkit and various things like that. That audience is on Facebook, and they might be on LinkedIn as well. And then on LinkedIn is where our kind of clients are going to be in terms of actually getting retainer and project clients. That has been a bit of a testing point. I know that a load of people are active on Twitter. I find Twitter exhausting, so we don't use it, but it's sort of, it's a bit of everything. It's a bit of, where are your audience? That's the first thing. There's absolutely no point showing up on a platform where there's nobody there. Well, where there's nobody there who's going to spend money with you. So I think that's the other thing, is that you just got to avoid the vanity metrics, because, you know, you could be like, oh, I've got a gazillion followers on Instagram. It's like, yeah, but are they buying from you, or do they just like what you post? Like, that's, you know. That said, you can also build up an audience of advocates, who are people who are going to, you know, talk about you to other people. So, in terms of like actual business sense, our small business resources do not make us the money that they need to cover what we put into them. So the blogging course is really, it's a labor of love for me. I just really love teaching people, but also people come on the course and they really love it. And then they go and talk about us, which is great. So, maybe somebody's husband or wife works in a company, or, maybe their mates trying to make a decision about blogging services or getting their website done. And that's really, really powerful. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but I'd say the main thing is, where is your audience, and the audience that are going to initially the ones that are going to spend money with you. That's really important.
I think we've got two more questions.
Pop the link in the chat before I forget it.
Yeah.
So that's the
So the other one was from Sabrina, and it's one that I think we suffer a bit, like depending on the client, but basically we ask feedback on our clients for testimonials, but they're often very dry and short. Do you have any recommendations on how to get better testimonials?
Do you know what? There's actually, and I should have found the link to it, I can send it to you later. We wrote a blog post on our website about how to write a great testimonial. It's a bit tricky though, because you don't really want to send it and say, hey guys, can you do us a testimonial? Basically, it really needs to be good. So can you read this blog post? It is a bit tricky. And I think that's why it can be nice to have that kind of case study base. So when we do case studies for our client, like as in like when people commission us to write case studies, we interview their end user, their end customer or client. And that's really powerful, because then they can be saying lots of stuff and we're listening and we're listening. And then we're kind of using that conversation to craft something that's genuinely going to touch on the right things. I come from a journalism background, so I love that sort of thing where you say, yeah, essentially interviewing people. And that's how we conduct our briefings. We do it on an interview style basis, which is why we can work with expert businesses, because we're not just kind of going, yep, we're going to write on these topics and we go away and do it. We're using their expertise, and just using that as the basis for the article.
And I guess the last one, which was from Jay, which is, personally, I've been like, I consider myself as an expert developer. Like, I've been coding for more than 20 years. I run multiple businesses, and Cookies has been running for 10 years. So clearly there's like some positives. But every time you have to portray yourself in a good light, I do face myself imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you do face it as well. Like, do you have yourself any tip on how to combat imposter syndrome?
Yes, I absolutely do. I'm reading a really good book at the moment called The Business of Expertise by a guy called David C. Baker. He's an incredible guy in America. And he talks about sort of two types of confidence, and how some people just innately have this confidence. I don't know, they were maybe raised in a way that their parents just kept telling them they were brilliant, so they just believe they're brilliant, even if they're not. I feel like the government is full of people like that. It's like, we're brilliant, absolutely brilliant, let's just keep going, it's great. And everyone's going, no, it isn't. And then there's people who are really good, but maybe aren't so sure. And so people like us, I think, it's the market then tells us, if I look at the success we've had over the last 4.5 years since we launched, I kind of think, well, I must be doing something right, because it's going really well. And our clients are really happy, and we have very little poor feedback. It's always really, really good. The business is growing, so you kind of have to look at that. And the other thing that David Baker talks about is, he talks about how, as an expert, you start off you create this expertise and you're not really sure of it yet. And then you sort of grow into it. And I think we should always be doing that. It was Tina Fey that says about, you say yes, and then you figure out how to do it later. And I think that's the thing. You should always be putting a marker just a little bit further in the sand than where you are, because then you're going to keep growing. Because yeah, of course, we're experts, but are there better experts? Of course there are. And not only I'm the world's best copywriter or the world's best agency owner, I am good at it, but I keep striving for more. And I think that's really important, to get that balance of going, it's okay to say I'm not the best.
Yeah, I think for me, I go in phases. Like, there are phases when everything is going well in Cookies or whatever, and I'm almost unstoppable, and my imposter syndrome is quite low. And then as soon as there's a little dent, then it's coming back full force. And that's typically like if you follow my posting patterns on LinkedIn or whatever, you can almost see where am I mentally, because it's like there's going to be phase where I'm going to be very quiet, and typically this is when I'm like, okay, I'm shit, nothing is going well, I must be doing everything wrong. And then there are moments where I'm going to be posting every day because it's like everything is great and I'm just want to talk about it. So trying to work on that. Yeah.
I think honestly, we all go through phases. I think women understand this a lot better than men because we go through phases every month, and it's just sometimes you're more out there than others and sometimes you're not, and it's just about respecting yourself and your own naturally where you are. I think it's really helpful to have a content strategy so that you've got stuff that you can be posting. We have a content plan. It's done a month in advance. We post 3 times a week from the company account. And then I can either just share that, or I also then add other things. We talk about obviously the brand versus the kind of personal brand. But also therapy. I think everyone should have therapy and coaching. In the last 5 years, I've had 1 therapist and 4 coaches. And that's not because I just move between coaches. I've had coaching for a period of time and then I've stopped, and then I've had coaching again or mentoring through like the NatWest Accelerator. And it's just really, really important to have other people outside that can get you out of your head.
Yeah.
If you're inside your head, you can just spiral.
So we use, as a business, we use a coach, and we use somebody to help us with the business. But as a personal therapy, that's something I've been pondering for years. It's like this idea, but the problem is I'm looking for something extremely special, which is I'm not looking for a therapy. I'm looking to sit down, just speak to somebody that would pretend they listen. I don't care if they listen or not, but I just need to get stuff out and then leave and dash off, basically. Like, that's what I personally would be looking for. I don't know if that kind of therapy exists.
Because the thing is, there's different types of coaches, isn't there? Like at the moment, we've got a business growth coach because we're in a really high growth phase. And that's really great, but I need the kind of much more business advice. I don't really need anything to do with mindset. That's all fine at the moment. But there's been other times where I had a really good coach who was helping with kind of habits, because I was a single mum. My kids I've got twins. They were, I think, about 2 at the time. So, I was very busy and my habits were kind of going to pot. I was staying up too late and not eating healthy. And I just needed somebody who was going to help me to get back into good habits. So then that was a very specific one about that. Yeah. You've got coaches around mindset as well. And there's lots of different coaches, and it's just finding the right person, I think.
Sure. We got Ellen in the chat who says she's offering what I'm looking for. So maybe I'm going to reach to after that, like just that.
And peer groups as well. So Natalie and I are in a small group of, we really specifically created this group. There's only 5 of us in the group. We're all female business owners. Yeah. We have teams between, say, 5 and 15 people. So we're all in a really similar position. And we chat every 3 weeks. 1 week, one session will be like just bringing out kind of questions and problems. And then the next one of us will run a session on something that we're an expert in. And that's just so positive, because just even hearing somebody else going, oh, I'm struggling to like onboard. I've got 3 new starters and I'm struggling to onboard. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm in that position too. And that can be really powerful, because you know that you're not alone.
Yeah. That somebody else in the chat recommended to being a mentor, basically like mentoring yourself, which is something I've tried to do over the years, but honestly, I'm a terrible mentor. I know it now because I've tried and I'm shit at it, and I can't do it for the life of me. I can't be a good mentor. I've tried. I've read books. I've tried everything. I'm just not patient enough. Natalie is an amazing mentor. Like, if you got the chance of being mentored by Natalie, that's it. And I think that's when she started to do mentoring, and I've seen how engaged she is with like the people that she mentors and how passionate she is about it. And I'm like, okay, that's clearly what good mentoring is. I'm not a good mentor, therefore there's no need for me to pretend I am. I'm just going to completely remove that side, because clearly I've tried and it doesn't work. I've tried to improve it, but it doesn't work. So I'm like, okay.
There's a really good book that I would highly recommend called Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. And that's all about the power of vulnerability and being able as a leader to say, this is something I'm not good at. And I'll even say to clients, I'm not organized. I'm really not a very organized person. I'm the creative lead, but Rosie's the one that organizes everything. If it wasn't for Rosie, nothing would get done on time. The clients would be unhappy. It would be a horrible mess, but that's okay. And it's realizing that, and I think that's the journey I've been on the last few years, is realizing I don't have to be good at everything. And actually, the things that I think are my weaknesses are actually strengths. Everything is a flip side of the coin. So for example, I'm very chatty. I talk too much. And I always used to worry, I'm like, I talk too much. And then I'm like, well, but actually elements of that are really useful. I am comfortable coming and doing a talk like this, whereas other people on my team would be like, oh my God, there's just no way I couldn't do it. And it's like, great, but then they've got their skills. So it's recognizing that everything has a shadow side, you know?
Yeah. Well, talking about shadow side, there was one last question before we break. So while you were talking, I was like trying to snatch the books that were behind you. And all the books are great, but I have a question about the two books that are on here, Forensic and the Book of Poisons.
I know, I really need to reorganize my shelf because I always say this. I love writing fiction. Well, I don't write any fiction at the moment, but before I had children and a business, I used to write fiction. I love crime fiction. So yeah, you've got Forensics, Poisons, and there's also the Crime Writer's Guide to Police Procedure, which is probably very out of date now, but yeah. So I'm not just trying to murder people, although I do occasionally wave it in front of my other half, just in case he gets any ideas.
I've got the book. Cool. Rin, thank you so much for this morning. Everybody, thank you for being there. I hope you enjoyed our chat today. I think Emily is going to wrap up all that. So there's going to be a video available on available on the Cookies HQ YouTube channel. We're going to share all those links. I think Emily's organized, and normally she tries to post those links either like today or Monday, basically. So we should not wait too much.
Yeah, sorry, my link is a random Infusionsoft one. We'll work out how to link it to the site properly in a bit, but it is the right one. Don't worry, it's not a virusy one. It's
cool.
One.
Thank you so much, Rin, and then looking forward to hear from you again on LinkedIn again.
Awesome, great.
Have a good day. Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy your coffee. Bye bye. Take care.